Author's House. I'm excited today to be talking to the author of Cement Dust, Peter J. Bergman, and he's going to talk to us about some of the struggles that we went through writing the book and some intriguing things that we will find out about his book. Now, Peter, thank you for being here with me today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. To begin with, my name actually is J. Period Peter Bergman, as opposed to Peter J. I was born in New York City 77, almost 78 years ago. So I've been around for a long time. I've seen a lot. I've worked in the theater. I began writing seriously when I was 14. I moved to New York City, moved back to New York City, actually, and started going to the theater on Saturday afternoons. And I was so impressed with the play that I saw called A Taste of Honey that I wrote a review of it and sent it to a local newspaper called the Nine Times. It serviced 9 communities in Queens, New York. And to my surprise, they published it and sent me a check for $25. I thought, this is a career. So I began writing, and I've been writing ever since. It's 68 years that I've been writing and publishing.
Wow, that's a long journey, and I'm really excited to be talking to someone that's had that much experience.
Well, thank you.
How would you prefer to be call you? You mentioned earlier that your name is actually J. Peter. Would you like to be addressed as Peter?
Peter is fine.
Got it. Can you tell us about your writing journey and how you became an author?
Well, basically, as you heard, I started working when I was 14 years old as a writer. To my surprise, when I published 3 reviews, the publisher of the newspaper called me in and wanted to meet me. And I was a kid. I was short. I was very skinny at the time. I wish I wasn't in. But he said to me, "You can't be the guy who's writing these reviews. You're just a kid." And I said, "I really am." And he said, "Sit down and write me an article." So I did. And he loved it, and he hired me. I thought, I thought this was a career, but I was being paid $25 per review. And I'm now paid 68 years later, $50 per review. This is not exactly a career choice. So I've done a lot of other kinds of writing along the way. I've been a playwright. I've worked for a number of companies as a publicist, and it's just kept me very busy. But writing has always been at the center of my work.
Yeah, I can't imagine myself writing an impromptu article right away. So it seems like it's something that you were gifted with because not everyone can do that at an early age.
People have told me that.
What inspired you to write Cement Dust and explore the themes of friendship and mental illness?
Well, when I was in my mid-20s, I was introduced to a cousin of my mother's, someone I'd heard about, seen pictures of, but had never known. And she and I became instant friends. She was a highly creative human being. She'd worked in publishing. She did all sorts of things. And as we became closer and closer, I realized that she had some mental issues. She was manic depressive. And I'd seen her through manic sessions and deep depressions. And I became a caregiver for her inadvertently. It just happened, it grew. And having dealt with her real life, it stayed in my head as a story. She died many years ago, but the story became paramount, and I just wanted to tell it. And the book is about a woman who is creative, is talented. She's a sculptor, and she is manic depressive.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. How did your personal experiences or observations influence the characters and their relationships in the book?
Well, there are 2 principal characters, Billy and his cousin Feyhe. You can see them on the cover of the book. And Billy is not me. Some of his experiences are based on my actual experiences of my own cousin, but he's a creative person in a very different way. He's an interior designer. And she's a sculptor, and he gets a job through her initially. And he incorporates a piece of her sculpture into his interior design, into this room that he designs for this guy. And it becomes a focal point of the first part of the book when she gets angry and disgusted at the use of her work in an environment she does not approve of. And I had a similar experience with my own cousin. So my own experiences did sort of factor into all of this, but I am not the character of Billy. And Feyhe in the book is not my cousin. But there are so many similarities in the relationship. And it was the relationship that sort of kept me going, keeping the book alive.
Can you share any challenges you faced while writing Cement Dust and how you overcame them?
Yes. I started to tell you that so much of the experiences of the character Billy are based on my own. It became hard at one point to separate myself from the character. And I didn't want to be myself as the character. So I had to struggle in pulling myself away from the character and being able to create him as someone totally new. I went off, I spent a week at a writer's retreat in central Massachusetts, and I could concentrate on the book working 12 hours a day, which was an incredible experience. I recommend it to any young writer, especially who needs a way to find a way to focus his work. It was a big help to me because I was alone. I had no telephone contact with anybody out there. There was another writer in residence who I would meet only at dinner time, occasionally at breakfast, but she was a late sleeper. And we would discuss some things. Never specifics about the book, but enough to get me constantly remotivated and to pull myself away and to get the thing going. I loved it.
Well, I'm glad you were speaking about your challenges. Now we have a question here. Do you have a specific writing process or routine while working on this book?
Yes, I would work every day, at least 2 hours of concentrated writing. Sometimes I could actually get the whole day, which was great. But usually I had other things that pulled me away. But doing it every day, keeping it alive, keeping it going was the most important factor in being able to write the book. Just keeping everything going, keeping it alive, keeping the characters constantly fresh in my head. That was so important.
How did you research and gather information about manic depression to accurately portray it in the story?
I spoke to a lot of psychoanalysts I know. I don't know why I know so many, but I just happened to. And they filled me in on a lot of information, particularly about medication used to control manic depression. And that was really important because what happens with many people who are bipolar is that when they're in a good place, when they're on the manic end of things, they would stop taking their medication and that would swing them into deep depressions. So I used that in the book for Feyhe. It was very important because she has some strange, strange things going on. She's adopted a Korean family and she gets over involved.
Well, thank you for sharing that piece. I think it's good that people get some form of they get educated by hearing your side through the character in the book.
Thank you.
What message or takeaway do you hope readers will get from reading Cement Dust?
I'd like more people to understand what the creative process is and how it can affect you mentally. So many famous writers, poets in particular, have been manic depressive, and their work doesn't always reflect that part of their personality, but it is what keeps them going. The need to express their deepest emotions and deepest feelings. And we read their stuff and we think, oh, this is fun, this is interesting, this is nice. But the reality is that deep down, there's a human being who's having a lot of problems. And we may or may not ever know about it, but we are influenced by it in so many ways. And I want people to understand that it's okay to be bipolar. It's okay to be creative and bipolar. It's okay to read and understand and watch people who have both things going at the same time. and appreciate them for who they are.
I like that message.
Well, thank you.
Were there any particular authors or books that influence your writing style or approach?
I don't think so. I re I've read God knows a lot. Before my eyes began to go, which they have, I would read 4 books a month simultaneously, usually 2 fiction, one historical, and one biographical. Um, I did that for years and years and years. Um, so to cite 1 or 2 specific influences for this book, I really can't. There were just too many.
And can you share any memorable feedback or reactions you have received from readers of Cement Dust?
Yes, people who've read it and have called me or talked to me at various readings and other things over the years have said, this book has touched me in strange ways. And when I ask them what they mean by that, they're pretty specific in saying that they found something of themselves in the book that they didn't really even notice before, but they found similarities in activity and actions and decision making. And it gave them a new sense of who they were. And for a book to do that, I think is pretty significant.
I agree. It's just like watching a movie where you can relate to the characters
Exactly.
somehow, some way.
And of course, this is my 3rd book of fiction. So I'm very pleased that this book has had an impact. It won an award. It won an IPPY Award, Independent Publishing Award, a couple of years ago, for the whole Northeast, 6 states.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
I was quite impressed.
Well, as an experienced author, and I know you've been writing for quite some time now, 68 years is a lot of experience. What advice would you give to aspiring writers who are just starting their writing journey?
2 things. I would say, first of all, know what you want to achieve with your writing. Know where you're going. I always know the ends of my books before I start them, the ends of my stories before I start them. When you're writing, so often your characters want to take you in a different direction. And sometimes that's okay, as long as you're comfortable with it and know that you can achieve what you need to achieve. And keep your eye on the goal. Always keep your eye on the goal. And basically, spend at least 5 days a week writing. It's good to have a weekend. I think that's appreciated, but it's got to be something that drives you forward, moves you forward, and gets you to the point of completion.
That's fantastic advice. It reminds me of a book that I read too. Begin with the end in mind. So
Aha.
a good habit, right? What do you enjoy most about being a writer, and what keeps you motivated to continue writing?
I think I have too many stories to tell, one way or another. And I know I'll never get them all on paper or into the computer. But I want to share things in my life with strangers, as well as with people who know me. A lot of people have heard me tell the stories of incidents in my life, and they always say, "Oh, you should write that down." And I think, yeah, I should, but I probably am not going to. But every time I work on a new story or a new book or a new poem, even, I find that getting it out gives me a great satisfaction because it's no longer just mine. It's something that can be shared. And I love the concept of sharing.
Are you currently working on any projects? And if so, can you give us a sneak peek or hint about what it's about?
Yes, I'm working on 2 different things. I'm writing a memoir, which I never thought I would, but I am working on it very slowly. Um, so much of what I remember may or may not be real. I think we all have a tendency to fantasize about our own lives. And if we're not happy with the way something has gone, we create an alternative ending in our heads. And if we think about it long enough, it becomes real. And I'm trying not to do that with this memoir. I'm trying to get to the real. I'm also working on a new novel, a historical piece set in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, about three highly creative people who become friends for different reasons and how their lives affect one another.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that you're working on a memoir. You made this interview very interesting, and um, it would be nice to hear a lot about who you are and how you came about to writing all the books that you've written. So take your
That's nice to
time.
hear.
I agree that you should take your time because it's something about yourself, and that's
Yeah,
one of the legacies you will leave behind.
it's harder to do that reality than to do fiction, even
Yes,
fiction based on my own reality.
I agree. Well, where can we purchase your book?
Well, you can purchase it online, various sites, barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, or, and I discovered this recently, you can go to your bookstore and ask your book dealer to order the book from the publisher.
Well, thank
It
you for
doesn't take very long to get. So
well, thank you for letting us know where we can purchase the book. And lastly, Peter, how was your experience working with Authors Press?
basically, it's been very good. I've had a few dark moments where things have been confusing, where I've lost my temper. I don't like losing my temper, but it's happened. And they've been very helpful. Um, they're bringing out a new edition of Cement Dust, and they're going to be representing it at the London Book Fair and other places. And I'm excited about that. So I'm very grateful to them.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience and for giving us feedback. We want to grow with you and help you. And I'm lucky enough to be partnering with Authors Press, and I'll be able to talk about your book more at the London Book Fair.
Oh, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for answering all my questions.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Authors Press.